It's been how many years since the world freed Nelson Mandela from out of prison? It's been what? 6 years, 7 years? But I remember the occasion very, very, very clearly. And at this time, I just want to say to all the people here, the show tonight, respect must be given when respect is due. I think you should all give yourselves a nice round of applause for being there and being part of the fight against apartheid. Come on. Yeah. And we just want to continue to welcome all freedom fighters wherever they are tonight. And at this time, we also need to think about Haiti, our fellow Caribbeanites, if you want to put it that way. 2, 3, and welcome home, Mr. Mandela. Welcome home, oh, oh. Welcome home, Mr. Mandela. Welcome home, oh, oh. Welcome home, Mr. Mandela. Welcome home, oh, oh. Welcome home, Mr. Mandela. Welcome home. Oh, yes, make friend, make good friend. Say you free again. Oh Lord, give me a little calypso, man. West made the red, make good bread. They are street again. Yeah, everybody, one more time. Welcome home, Mr. Mandela. Welcome home. 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 27 years or more locked in captivity. Wisdom and hope for the poor, joy for you and me. Apartheid has no place in society. Black and white for equal opportunity. Democracy, peace, and freedom ain't one but love. They won't stop the war. We can start the arms. Welcome home, Mr. Mandela. Welcome home. Welcome home, Mr. Mandela. Welcome home. 'Cause what we want a Mandela, yeah, we want a. We want a Mandela Day. We want. Did you hear that? We want a Mandela Day. We want. Well, we did get on Mandela Day. We want a Mandela Day. We want one. And guess what? If Mr. Mandela was here tonight, I know he would have felt very proud of you. And if he had had a chance to speak to you, I know he would have given you something like this. Now I'm back on my feet again. I walk proud down the street again. And they all look at me again. And they know that I'm strong. Oh, 'cause from a distance, you look like my friend, even though we are at home. God is watching us. God is watching us. God is watching us from a distance. Bang, 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 bang. Hear me now, hear me now. Listen, brother, people say so. Hear me now, pom pom. And if Brother Bob Marley was here tonight, he too would have felt proud of you. And if he had a chance to sing something for you, I know he would have given you something like this. He was a buffalo soldier. Come on, everybody. Red Rock Rasta. Buffalo soldier. In the war for America. Why, yeah, yeah. Why, yeah, yeah, yeah. Why, yeah, 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 yeah. Why, yeah, yeah. Why, yeah, yeah.
Sister Carlene Davis there. Welcome home, Mr. Mandela. Today is International Nelson Mandela Day, so I thought we'll start off tonight with some musical tribute to Nelson Mandela. Certainly a giant, a legend in our time and of all time. Welcome to Politics 101, wherever you're joining us from, whether it's in Guyana or the wider Caribbean or in the United States or Canada, in Europe. Welcome to Politics 101 on this wonderful Tuesday evening. We are going to do it tonight as we do every night here on Politics 101. Our guest tonight is, of course, Dr. Henry Jeffrey, who is no stranger. And we are going to be talking tonight about all things politics. And you all know that Dr. Jeffrey doesn't hold back. We're going to start with a clip, that clip that you all have become accustomed to from Ravi Dev. And we're going to take the conversation from there. The question tonight is political solution or political confrontation? Political solution or political confrontation? On this program, we are in favor of a political solution because we feel that confrontation will get us nowhere. But let's start with Ravi Dev.
Namaskar, everyone. My predecessor, Raj from Suriname, has made my task much easier to represent Dr. Singh here because what he has told you about Suriname holds true for Guyana. But before I make that presentation on behalf of Dr. Singh, I want to challenge you, the Hindu businessmen in here from Bharat and from elsewhere. In Guyana, there are over half of the individuals in that country, the population, are of Indian descent. And of that, the majority of them, 45%, are Hindus. We went there in the 19th century. My great-grandfather left Gaya in 1888. And in the 4 or 5 generations since, we have established ourselves there. So between Trinidad in the Caribbean, Guyana, and Suriname in South America, we have about 2 million people of Indian descent, of which over half are Hindus. Now, I want to challenge you in this way, that there have been 3 waves of Hindus historically. The first wave was probably from the year 1000 onwards, and they went east. And that is how our civilization, our Hindu civilization, spread to what we call now Southeast Asia, through Cambodia, Thailand, East Indies. And who were those individuals that spread our civilization? They were business people. They were businessmen, possibly businesswomen, who went east and they made tremendous profits. But in doing so, they also held themselves out as Hindus, practiced their business as Hindus, did not go out and proselytize, but they changed those people, not by converting them, but by showing them how to be part of a superior culture. The second wave was to countries like Suriname, Fiji.
Good evening, Dr. Jeffrey.
Good evening, David, and thank you again for having me.
Well, we heard our brother Ravi Dev there. Superior culture. Now, that's a speech he gave 6 years ago in India, but it has resonance for us in Guyana, because if you listen to the rest of the speech, it was about inviting Hindus to come to Guyana. This superior culture. Was it a slip of the tongue by Ravi Dev, or was it something much more ingrained in that kind of presentation?
Well, David, first of all, you know very well that people tend to exaggerate their own cultures. It is not something new to anyone. And he was talking about some 1,000 years ago when the first wave. When I listened to it the first time, long time ago, I thought I'm not certain who he's speaking to say that the Hindu culture that when there was superior. But these things, David, culture, religion, when people say they are superior, there's no point in being a religion if it's not superior to the other one. So you better go join that other one. So it don't, people always speak about the superiority of the culture and the superiority of the religion and all that thing. And so it doesn't surprise me in any way. But at the same time, I said, I don't know specific people to which you're speaking. And secondly, certainly, I mean, the businessman might have left and went to a superior culture at that time, but certainly when he left India and come to Guyana, it was a superior culture that brought him. He didn't come here. You know, so he's like all of us here. It would, I mean, certainly superior in terms of a lot of things, technology and all that sort of a thing. It depends on how you look at these matters. So I don't pay much mind to that sort of thing about being superior culture and superior religion, and this religion is better than that religion. It's all nonsense. For me, I don't even believe in any, in terms outside of the sociology of religion. I don't have any belief in any great deity and all of that. So effectively, that's fine with me if he wants to feel. So I know that the culture that brought him here must have been a little bit more superior to his at that point of time, because they had the technology, they had everything at their disposal. But even then, I wouldn't do it. Depends on what you mean by superiority. The fact that you don't have all the technology might not mean that you don't have more human values and all those things. So I am not really going to pay too much mind to that kind of a thing. It's not unusual to people to exaggerate their own kind of cultures and religion. As I said when I began, if the religion you are in is not better than the other one out there, is not you better leave and join them. The Hindu religion right now is the third largest in the world. And third largest in the world. The religion, the growth religion at this point is the Muslim religion, so to speak. And Christianity is the second religion in the world. In places like Guyana, the Hindu religion is taking a beating from the Pentecostals and all of those kinds of people, and they want to fight back in all kinds of ways. trading barbs, because if you look at what they, some of the more conservative Pentecostal priests and thing thinks about the Hinduism, it's the most barbarous religion. And then the other side, they think that any religion, I think was the Swami who said something, that any religion that can have brimstone and fire can be civilized. So, I mean, David, it's a belief system. That's all it is, a belief system. A lot of people believe it, and that's why I believe in sociology or religion, in the sense that religion give people, it's tension maintenance. It gives people a way out. You might have a revolution every day if some people didn't actually believe that God will come and save them out of the purgatory they find themselves. So I think religion is good for you to go and learn.
I think we've lost Dr. Jeffrey there for a minute. Good evening to you while he tries to come back in. Welcome to Politics 101 on a Tuesday evening. We are asking the question tonight: political solution, or are we going to have political confusion? Are we going to have a political solution, or are we going to have a political confrontation in Guyana? We have watched for the last 3 years as this government has gone on a rampage. It has violated the rule of law, violated our human rights, violated all the norms that we have become accustomed to. Political solution or political confrontation. Dr. Jeffrey is back with us, and he's giving us
I don't know how I disappeared here, but the world is a different place now. So effectively, I wouldn't pay too much mind to those things, David. I mean, superiority defines itself in practice, not in gaff and beliefs and all that sort of thing.
But Dr. Jeffrey, 6 years ago when this tape first surfaced, and I know I looked at it and quite a few of us looked at it, and there was not the kind of interest in the contents of what Brother Dev said. But this time somebody discovered the address, brought it, and it has gone viral. Why has it gone viral today as opposed to 6 years ago, in your estimation?
It is, it has gone viral today. 6 years ago, I think that you would have been in office, innit? Let's be real. So nobody just said Dev talking nonsense or something. And the major issue that we're going to discuss here, this kind of thing, I think Dev has to try. Dev isn't necessarily against what we are trying to find a solution to these kinds of things, But he's in a specific forum, he's talking to a specific kind of people, and that you were in power then, and therefore you're not going to pay attention. But suddenly you're not in power anymore, you want to pay attention to them. No, I didn't pay attention then, I'm not paying attention to him now. Because that, I can understand. I can go. I think it's legitimate for any one of us to go to Africa and says, Africans, please come to Guyana and invest and all of that. What's wrong with that? Indeed, everybody wants to Africans to go to them. By 2050, what is it, 2080, Africa going to be a powerhouse. I doubt if America can take on China without Africa, but then they essentially have a weapon in the hands called 50 million black people in America. So effectively, and they are very much capitalistic in their views, and they are holding better and more powerful positions in America, and America needs them to confront. So geopolitics. So I wouldn't pay too much mind about that at this point.
I want you to listen to this clip, and then on the other side we're going to have a discussion on it.
In where the two parties are in a form of collaboration and cooperation. Look, if the government were to do more, I don't know if Granger did that kind of stuff.
The PNC has to reshape its politics.
It does have to reshape its politics. And the only future for Guyana is a future in where the two parties are in a form of collaboration and cooperation. Look, if the government were to do more, I don't think they're doing enough, but they might be doing enough, I don't know. But to the outsider, I'm an outsider, I don't believe that they're doing enough. But if they were to do enough to build an African business class and middle class, African people have traditionally not gone into business for whatever reasons. And it was made worse during the 70s and 80s. What Barnum did was to take over the economy and place black managers, African managers, not exclusively, but predominantly African managers, to run these structures. So African leadership went into the bureaucracy. That is why you heard this talk at that time of the bureaucratic bourgeoisie. They went into the bureaucracy and not into business. So the PNC took their African support, the intellectual, academic experts and so on, and had them in the bureaucracy. So they did not flourish in business. That is one of the reasons you see people can say, well, all Indians are getting the job because the contracts and procurement and so on, because Indians are the people who are bidding. Indians are the people who are putting out the bids for these things. But if the people were to be spending more time taking away the African bourgeoisie from the PNC, they'd be in very serious trouble. Very, very serious trouble.
Our time is going. Before we get back to Ms. Ankran, this book is entitled Army Intervention in the 1973 Elections in Guyana. In this book, it was described how the soldiers killed 2 PPP supporters trying to stop the hijacking of the ballot boxes. The 2 men that were killed were 17-year-old Jagan Parmasal and Bolonat Parmanant. Tomorrow evening at 8:30, we have a special edition of the Gildari Fadikisun show in which his children, Bolonat Parmanant children, came last Sunday for the 50th anniversary of his death. And they will be in the studio tomorrow evening. 1 daughter and 2 sons. They will be talking about the murder of their father when they were very small, and how they reached the age that they are right now, what they experienced, how they felt, how they missed him, and who took care of them, and how they reached the stage that they reached. This book is not for the faint-hearted. Army Intervention in the 1973 Election in Guyana, written by Mrs. Janet Jagan. And at that time, our guest would have been a top leader in the PPP at that time. So tomorrow evening, 8:30, special edition of the Gildawi Fadi Kisoon show. Back to Leonard Gildawi and our guest, Mr. Ramkaran.
Interesting point to raise there by Mr. Ramkaran with regards to how they need to do it. But I didn't hear, I think, I'm not sure whether I hear you in your closing remarks. That would have been one of my questions. What is the formula? How are they going to do it? Because they're in almost every village, Afro-Guyanese village, Mocha, Buxton. What is the formula if the people traditionally, they ain't going to shift? It's just one tip that they won the 2020 elections by, that's the PVP. How will they get, what's the formula for them to really go after the Afro-Guyanese?
They wouldn't get, for the foreseeable future, they will not get African Guyanese support for any, to any considerable extent. Aubrey Norton runs the danger of losing the African middle class support as Corbyn did in 2006. Corbyn lost that support.
And he lost
5 seats, and those 5 seats went to the AFC. Now there's no AFC today. So if if Norton loses that support again, they will stay home. They're not going to vote for the PPP. The PPP has no hope of gaining large-scale African support. That can only come with a collaboration between the APNO and the PPP at some stage. But the PPP can shave off enough to keep a bare majority going, for a considerable time. But the PPP has to understand that people get tired of one party rule after a while. So
before we go, I know time is.
Dr. Jeffrey, your thoughts on what your Mr. Ramkaran said there?
Look, David, I thought that you would have worked out the issues you want out of that potpourri of confusion you just heard.
Yeah.
It's just confusion. I mean, I understand quite well. Ralph comes and he says, all right, the PPP, the PNC put all the people and they never allowed them to go into business. They went into the state sector. And if the PPP can take off the bourgeoisie from them, the PNC will be serious trouble. Now, then 5 seconds later, he comes back and says, oh, they'll never get Africans vote. They'll never be. So what kind of serious trouble these people going to be in? But it's a whole lot of potpourri of things. I thought that you might have asked, you might have some questions you want to really get out of this that I can answer, because
Yes.
All right, bring all over the place.
No, all right, let me then ask the first straight question. Ralph's thesis that Africans had to get into the bureaucracy, and that is the reason that they're not in business today. Do you agree with that view?
Africans were always in the bureaucracy. Burnham didn't put them in the bureaucracy. Burnham didn't come and meet them in business and send them in the bureaucracy. Africans were all in the bureaucracy. That's why I tell you, I can't really respond to things unless you have me. And we can end that discourse right now. Africans are always in the public service. Burnham just, and at the time, please remember that everybody was nationalizing. It's not Burnham alone. All over the third world, people were nationalizing and taking over stuff and sewing and saying that this is the new path to development, this socialist path. Your party was saying that Burnham, is too liberal. Your party wanted the whole thing take over. The PPP wanted the whole thing take over. The state enterprises he talking about, the PPP wanted all nationalized. And so when Burnham was moving cautiously, because Americans placed him in power, it was quite clear to keep dragging out the power. So even Burnham and the co-op socialism was trying to move in that direction, because he also was a socialist. Burnham came to the PPP as a socialist. So as a relatively radical one, not like Janet and Cherry, who will write the Communist Party in the Soviet Union and asking them for loans so they can bring communism to the whole Caribbean. The truth is, the boy said he was more like a Tito. And Guyana said he used to call him the young Tito, because he always feel that, you gotta be more distant from the Soviets and all of them, and try to build your own. This I know about them. So effectively, what black people just follow the ideological line of the day. Put it like that. Burnham followed that line. Burnham wasn't going for no business class. I mean, he said cooperative should be the bit. But I know about cooperative. I do my MSc around cooperative. And Burnham's whole idea was to talk about cooperative corporations. He was saying that the big business should not be government controlled, but should be controlled by a kind of corporation that exists in Europe, which meant that essentially what it was supposed to be, the consumer, the workers, and the state should run, in the end of the day, run state enterprises. It wasn't supposed to be no just thing, but that's how it played out at the end. What I'm saying to you, black people, to the question you asked, black people was always in the public sector. It's just that the public sector become popular in terms of world ideology in the third world.
And of course, that point is well taken. I mean, when you look at Jamaica and
Manly
with democratic socialism, and you found the middle class in Jamaica embraced democratic socialism. They became the managers and so forth, just as in Guyana. So your point is well taken. So I agree with you that Ralph is off there when he said that the reason blacks are not in business has to do with the fact that Burnham moved them into the bureaucracy, and that blacks are not in business because of some deeper structural problems. The second part of his presentation there, the PPP is not going to capture black people's support.
Well, we see that already. We see that. The PPP Barjagdo took the entire budget and threw it at them. And think he would have won. He started paying people $10,000 a day that he wouldn't pay tradesmen in the public sector to roll wheelbarrow and move things, thinking that if he give them that, they're going to vote for him. I sat down, and people telling me he must be joking. We're going to take. And international best practice also said, if people come with that game to you trying to buy your vote, we think, take it. But the ballot must be secret and vote how you want to vote. Because not taking it might put you in the bad books and all sort of that. The way they, I'll tell you something. The way they went about the election put all sort of people in danger. The PPP and PNC always had Africans and Indians in the party, but they used to keep them quiet because they know the result of community thing. How they gonna come and tell people red jersey and all of that thing? You know what danger you put people in. You are not concerned with the people. You are just concerned about your winning. That's all you are concerned about. Because if you are concerned of people, you will say, yes, support, but we understand. And that was the game between the PPP and PNC for years. And it should be, you can't endanger people by going and tell them, because all that is important is your winning and demonstrating to the powers that be that you got black people know. I mean, it was never going to happen. And that was all. Put people in all sort of jeopardy for that. Families are quarreling, all sort of thing. Why? If they are your supporters, let them support you, quietly and go along their way. If you want to come out, let them come out. But you are almost forcing people like the Nazi did, trying to get the Jews to wear white star. You remember during it? And everybody then know that you're a Jew because you're wearing white. You know how much millions the Jews paid to the bureaucracy just not to be having to wear a white star, and that's what they've done. I mean, and they throw the whole even if the PVP had won Georgetown and everywhere else it wanted to win, the powers that be would have said to them, boss, if you give me the whole of the American budget, I can win anything, so just go and give away money to people. They say, where you come in? You think that is democratic governance? Indeed, what you have done demonstrate that you don't understand what democratic governance is. That you can take the budget and throw it and give it, pass it out to people all over the place and say they come and vote for you. And what's going on here? That's not democracy. It was never intended to be. Everybody do shenanigans at election time, but that was so blatant. I don't think he could have get past anyone.
Henry Jeffrey there, and of course, even some people on the opposition side are making the argument about inroads that the PPP made. And of course, it's not any serious analysis. And here is Ralph Ramkaran, who's former PPP member, and maybe sympathies are still there. But here is Ralph saying that, you're not going anywhere. No, the other thing he said is the black middle class. He said that middle class bolted from Corbyn, went to the FC. I want to put a little correction there. They bolted and went to Raphael Trotman when he was the presidential candidate. The next election, when Ramzatan became the presidential candidate, they went back to the APNU. Ralph is saying they're going to bolt from Norton if he's not careful, but they're not going to go to the PPP, they're going to stay home. What do you think of that?
First of all, I think the first analysis is false.
Okay.
I think the first analysis that anybody walk away from Corbyn, they walk away from Corbyn because Corbyn had another strategy. After 2006, Corbyn developed a new strategy. It found out what the PPP was doing and decided it can do it better. And therefore, the PPP got beaten in 2011.
Mm-hmm. All right.
And then was on the street, the rig election. No. 2011, they didn't say that. They said they didn't realize what was going on. They say it's their party people that did not work hard enough and all that because they didn't see it coming. If you go back to the period between 2006 and 2011, if you hear the black people on the road, Corbyn sell out, he sell out the old troops, Corbyn get this from this, Corbyn, if you ask me, it's Corbyn self putting out them stories to blindside the PPP. And he blindsided the PPP and beat them in 2011. And they didn't even see it. They didn't even see it.
How expensive was it?
He rigged the election in 2011. He knew how to do it just like they start messing around in 2006. And therefore, they didn't see it then. They didn't see it. And when it happened, they blamed the supporters. 2015 come, they lose permanently.
Interesting analysis here.
Interesting. And that is so when they were always cussing up Corbyn beat them twice. As they are saying, you and we are all over the place. But you know that, David, that got a downside.
Yeah.
The downside of doing things like that is the side that allows you not to pay too much mind to your own supporters.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a way of coming to government that really you only need to mobilize your supporters for a point of time, that is where you do. When election come, you can mobilize them and carry them along and so on. You got a new leader in Granger and so on. You're going to come along and they're going to come in good numbers. So when you win or nearly win or so on, they're going to say it's all right. But remember, you ain't got a ground game. Your game is essentially for that period of election. And that was the problem they have. The ground game, the talking to the youths in the area, they bringing them forward to tell them all these things. Every minute you have the PVP go and think, 1973, hey, Freddie just now, 1973 elections, whoa, same old game. Same old game. We must vote for each other because of 1973 election. And look how Borno was wicked. Borno wasn't doing the 1973 election. Not Borno. It's Cherry Jagan was a communist, and the British decided he's not going to run Guyana and America. If there wasn't Bornham, there would have been another Bornham. It's just a Bornham stitching once. And look how long it took Bornham to stitch in. They had to drag him to a hotel name in Middle Street that the Kissoons used to live, and try the best to get him to go on to this bandwagon. So effectively, it's Cherry Jagan communism that made the PNC came to government at that point of time. It's Cherry Jagan. And the minute it fell, communism fell, the Americans, all them were back here saying, time to take a walk.
Mm-hmm.
Time to take a walk. So it is, I mean, these things that we start, I don't know, there's a difficulty in Guyana. People look at numbers at election and say, oh, this one got so much and this one got so much. When everybody know how the election rig. Now, why you think only 22% of these people think that any government represents them? It is too widespread what's taking place. People got their relatives, they're voting. People in Barbados saying, I left Ghana since 11 years. Oh, I did on the list of voted and all sort of thing. It is too widespread. Everybody knows what's going on. And that, as I said, had a downside. It had a downside. And that is why you have a whole lot of people who are saying that when the PPP start throwing out all this money and they're going to take that, people start saying yes, because there are some young people on the ground that was never really educated into the PPP's game. And all they're looking at is their interest and saying, why not, and this person and that. But you see, electoral manipulation has that problem in the sense that it means that the people themselves, the people actually don't have a role. One way or another, the people are just there. You know, you might say, black people used to support Borno, but it doesn't matter if black people support Borno or not, you win. And it's the same thing that happened. But the PPP was a bit more thing than that. PPP has always kept a little ground game, got people all over the place doing things. So this thing is complex. This is not no simple somebody vote here and this person vote and all that. The people, the IRI survey showed clearly that the people understand and the people know very well that these governments represent them. Yes, mm-hmm. Only 22%.
2%.
So that's it. And PPP alone get 40-something percent, you would have think.
On the surface, was the Corbyn strategy of moving towards coalition politics, was that effective back in?
Yeah, but it was. Listen, it kind of few people, it can't me, although I was very close to everybody. Certainly can't me. I believe that they would, because I was always saying, in the long run, you can't run a country like Guyana the way the PNC gonna take it and run it forever. The PNPP gonna take it and run it forever and leave 40% of the people out there by themselves. You can destroy the PPP if you want, if you think you're going to do that by sugar workers knocking off and taking away this and that. And if you think you can do it by all sort of manipulations of the PNC. So effectively, you can do that, but you leave a whole lot of alienated people on the ground on both sides. You have to make a decision that we have to run this country together. Guyana said a long time ago, divide the country. Well, nobody, that was a time, when he was saying that people really did not know how to get over the John Stuart Mill problem in terms of a public opinion. They didn't understand that if you don't have a public opinion, you can't hold no government accountable. If the PPP got, let me say, 49% and this, I'm not saying that is what they have. I don't think they got that. But let me say, and the Indians aren't willing to stand up against the PPP. What democracy you got? How you hold them accountable? You can't. It's impossible. So all they think is reading the press. We must hold them accountable. Call election, you're going to see. The people scared of the PPP more than the PNC. More than the PNC people might scared of the PPP. They might think the PNC is a joke on the same side. The PPP people scared of the PNC more than the PPP that they know are doing wrong things, but they're not going to come out against them. So you can't hold any government accountable. The truth is that all you can do to hold them accountable is to have a point of shared responsibility for what's going on. It's got to happen. It's not if.
Jeffrey, you, so far as I know, didn't start off as enthusiastic support of this power sharing, shared governance thing, but you got there. When did you make that transition, if I can call it that? And what drove you in that direction?
No, I was never a great anybody about shared governance. I always thought at the time, it's different now, that you gotta have a strong opposition and all of that. And I used, I said it in my second budget speech. I said the PNC gonna come with this thing about shared governance, but I ain't seen them. At that time, the PPP only won the election by 1 or 2%. And you won't believe this. We used to drink at Rupert and the Line Top in Kitty. And Gregory Gaskin, Gregory.
Yes, yeah.
He used to be out there. And one day, I come and he said, Jeff, I want to talk to you. He says, and then he tells me this thing. He said, man, look, if you come back, he says, read these things I'm going to give you now. And it's the same thing about mail and all that. And he said, if you think that it's all wrong, come back and we talk. And that's when it started hitting me that, this is what's happening. You got to have some kind of, you have to have some sort of public opinion. If you ain't got it, you ain't going to run no democracy or nothing like that. And you don't have it. It was not anything particularly. It's afternoon, Gregory stopped his motorbike. And then I said, because I didn't come to shared government as any nice thing to do so we can live together. Not at all, because I was in maybe the same mode that essentially it's people don't want it to happen and that, but it's a structural problem. Once you are in a competitive democratic situation, people are going to tell their people what they need to hear to get votes. Mm-hmm. And the same story you're using with your people, I'm going to use it with my people in another way. You will get votes, I can get votes. That is Guyana's dilemma. The question is how you going to get over that dilemma. Right. And it's only one way. Divide the country, as Guyana said a long time ago, or suggested, like Cyprus. At the same time, the British was trying with us. The British, I think again, it's Guyana point out that the British offered Cherry Jagan Shade governor since then, and he rejected. But it's around the same time that they offered it to Cyprus and they tried something. It never worked. Today, Cyprus is still said to be a single country, but it's two different governments running it. So, because it's the same kind of structure, we have to recognize that we are two large ethnic groups, over 80%, with over half a century of conflict. Burnham period here, stop it a bit because of the Cold War and all that. But the minute the Cold War fought and Cherry came back, by 1994, it's come back. Same ethnic conflict.
It's come back. And of course, Gregory Gaskin was the son.
Winifred.
Winifred Gaskin and Berkeley Gaskin, who was known as a national cricketer. Jeffrey, I'm going to out you here tonight. Because people just abuse you. You've been in the PPP. You don't think. What is not well known is that you made an attempt to bring the two of them together. Talk to me about how you arrive at that. Walk me through the thing. Walk us through the thing. Without giving away state secrets.
Listen.
Without giving away state secrets.
All right. I've been out 11 years gone. I can say, well, I like state secrets, I'm done. But the point since I was out, so there's not a problem with state secrets. No, I tried to get the PPP and the PNC together for a specific reason. I was always good with the PPP and the PNC. Nobody ever stopped me. Nobody ever stopped me from going Freedom House when I was in the PNC. Although my friend Malcolm Paris had to walk and find me there a day. When Dr. Reed looking for me, I was talking with Baisi Ramkaran at Freedom House. And Malcolm had to walk to Freedom House. We were both working at the National Development. And says, as he coming down, he said, as he come and see me, he says, Dr. Reed want you. So I said, yeah, let's go. We start walking. He said, you don't get nowhere in this place, but you ain't gonna get nowhere. Look where you there this right the time. And so I was always friendly with everybody. Nobody don't make me stop talk to the other side for no good reason. I'm not into that. The minute nobody has ever told me to do anything like that anyway, not in the PVP or PNC. I used to go PNC parties and all time and when minister in the government or the PPP. So nobody has ever said one day to me not to go or not to do anything like that. So but there was, you remember the PNC was out to go. I'm talking about practical. Remember the PNC came out of Parliament. They weren't going back to Parliament. Right. And, you guys said it anyway. So myself and Roger, we are good friends. If he got meetings, I just go and sit down and listen to his meetings.
Roger Luncheon.
Yeah. And I sitting down there listening to Roger, and he telling people all sort of things. I mean, not my business, not my meeting. So I said, Roger, why are you saying to these people that you can't negotiate with the PNC? That is not true. He says, you always talk and you always can do. I said, Roger. Anyway, after we argue a little bit, I said, Roger, I think I said 2 or 3 weeks at the PNC back in Parliament. Nonsense. I said, well, give me 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatsoever was the time span. And he said, let me see, give me some time to think about this. So I said, okay. Give him some time. He come back, all right, let me hear how this gonna roll. Let me see how this gonna roll. And I said, by which time, of course, I know people in the PNC. So I start talking to Grantley Wardra. He's still alive. I start saying Grantley was more or less there. I said, we got to get something going here because the country can't keep rolling the way it's rolling. So we got together. We end up getting together. Carberry, Corbin was the main man. Jack Joe, luncheon. I was there, but Jack Joe and luncheon was the main people. It didn't take 3 weeks. It take maybe 5, but the PPP, they signed the constructive engagement. You remember?
I remember the constructive engagement.
Good.
Yes.
Things to do for Linden, Jews to do for that, things to happen to that, things to happen to that. The PPP and the PNC went back to Parliament. And the PPP ain't do none of them things. Nothing serious.
Mm.
Corbin must be to this day.
Yeah.
Blame me. And that's why you must come and know that. To this day already, I'm telling, I did it in good faith. I said, if we sit down and talk, they went back to Parliament, what nothing. Where's the Linden plan? Where's the equality and where's the equitable thing on the media?
Right.
Myself and Bernard sit down at the Georgetown Club and work it out. Say you must have equitable thing in the media. Where is it? There's a whole bundle of thing there. Maybe again I can send you the document. But the point is, that thing put me off. It totally put me off. I mean, because here am I now, looking like if I gone and talk to the PNC to help the PPP. God, that's why almost, Corbin, he grew up in the era of everybody, some charlatan doing something. So effectively, I said, I get cocked too. And I told him how I get cocked and all of that. And it would be an interesting thing to know I get cocked, but that's for another day.
That's for another day, yes.
I've always tried to say these parties, look, man, Indian and black people live thing, white politics divided them. Why? I can't see it. I grew up with Indian people in VV and so on. I mean, but why people get divided on this is not the people as such. It's the nature of the system, and God change the system.
Yeah, no, Corbin feels very strongly about that period because, he put his whole career on that thing. He put his whole career on that thing. Let's fast forward. Is Norton in the same position where Corbin was?
Well, let me say this for Norton. Norton is a shared governance person.
Yes, I know
but
that.
the party is not necessarily so.
Right.
And he's walking what Chedi used to say between the raindrops.
Right.
But I would have hoped that he went and met Blinken. And Biden is a shared governance person.
Yes.
Undoubtedly. And he went and met Blinken. And I hope that, as I said in my article, and I said to the State Department briefing we had, that shared government got to be the answer here. There's no question about it. You have to shared governance some sort of equitable and some way. But even as you are talking about that, you have to bring equitability in terms of the economic outcomes of the country. I hear the people saying, oh, in October, we're going to bring people to show them we are not racist. Give me a break. I said long ago, look at the British in 2019, they did ethnic disparity studies. You are being accused of racism. Why don't you do, if you're not racist, do a study to show that there's equitability in how things are being distributed? No, but they're gonna bring people, fet them a little bit, and you come fet a little bit, walk around the place and say, we're not racist. Look, we got a couple black people love we and all that side of that. Essentially, I would have hoped that Norton made it clear in his package that apparently gave to Blinken. I know he would have had in his package the question of the distribution of wealth, but where you got talking the distribution of governance, and that we need a different form of governance, and all you are asking for in this distribution of wealth, is really to follow the United Nations development goals and all this, and the IPAD declarations and all that. You're not asking for much more than that. And those things should form the center of the discourse. And if he does that, you see, North is in a devil's and hard place. There's still got people around who wants to say that North is not the best leader. Well, me, I know who's the best leader, to be truthful. What I know is that he's dedicated. I know that for years the PPP tried to buy him over. They was never able to do so because all the PNC treated him. And I know that. I am not going to be bothered too much by the other. And I know that even without the PNC on his side in any hard way, he went and stymied the PPP's wish to take over African villages. I know that. So this is not me thinking, I know he's be at UG, we hang, we think. The first letter I wrote at PVP to defend, not even me, to defend Janet Jagan was against Norton. When he started writing letters that I think was not right about the housing project and accusing Janet of it. So I am a...
Oh, wow. What a time. What a time to Jeffrey. We're getting a lot out of Jeffrey. He's coming back. We're getting some thing out of Jeffrey here tonight. Sometimes we have to go behind the scenes with people who deal with this politics straight up. And you get that kind of thing behind the scene. Jeffrey tried to bring them together. And what I did ask is whether it's Janet or Jack Dio scuttle the thing, you see, the problem is that the issue is again on the table. Are we going to confront each other, or are we going to have a political solution where we settle this problem of sharing Guyana? That's my view. That's my party's view. From 1979, the WPA came out with a proposal for a government of national unity and reconstruction. That's the way. And we're not talking about sharing anybody power. PNC sharing PPP power and PPP sharing PNC. No. We're talking about sharing Guyanese power. And we fighting one another. To what end? The PNC win the next election, or the APNU or the coalition, and they get into power. Just as how we fighting down the PPP now, they're going to fight me down. At some point, it got to stop. At some point, it has to stop. You know, I fighting like hell to get rid of the PPP. But I don't believe in the politics of exchange. But Jeffrey's back here with us. Yes, sir. Continue from where you left off.
I'm not certain where I left off. But I think that we are a country, look what's happening to the oil well. That alone, I don't even pay mind to it, And look what's happening to teachers. You understand? Let me tell you something. Somebody called me and asked me some story about what I think about teachers. I said, hey, well, this is what I think about teachers. In 2004, when I wrote a piece, so nobody can't say it's not written, I can send and show. When the per capita GDP was $860, I said that the teachers were getting 3.4 times that, and it was fine. Because if you go and look around the world, up to today, I go and look at it. I went and look at it. I look at Africa. Because generally, let me go. Don't worry, America and these places. Go Africa, and the average is about 3.2, and they were getting 3.4. I said that's reasonable. They were getting 3.4 times the GDP. I wrote it down somewhere. They were getting $860 a year, US dollars a year. You understand my little calculation? Tell me now that they only getting 1.2 times the per capita, not GDP, GNP, because no GDP, Exxon got with much of that. Therefore, let me look at what we are. They only get 1.2%.
Wow.
And, I am saying, how can this be? I mean, and I've said, I went to Africa because they have like similar type regime. I mean, you might make a whole little chat, but they're still getting 3.2% as we speak. But now the teachers are getting 1.2%. Now 1.2%, 1.2 times the GDP, per capita. GNI, because I don't want GDP, they're going to be too much. And if you do that, even if you run that in nearly $500,000 a month, the average $500,000 a month, the average teacher should get. So they have, and therefore you need nurses and teachers if you play them properly. You don't, because they're not going nowhere.
Right.
But there you have it. So, but you, and therefore I hope Mr. Norton did what he's supposed to do and all of that. And he understands the play, but remember, he does in real politics. He's not like me and you gaffing. You got to live with the reality of the
reality.
Yeah.
Jeffrey, you've been around the PNC and you know the PNC, you know politics. Why there is a part of the PNC instinct that is against shared governance? Why? What's informing that part of their the political instinct?
I think first of all, I think they actually still believe, some of them, that can win election fairly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and if not fairly, that can win.
Yes.
Whatsoever taking place, they think they got the game ahead of it all. So they believe they can win fairly. But my content is not about winning fairly or unfairly by 1 or 2 votes more. How can you win by 1 and 2 votes and go and do all sorts of what the PPP is doing now with people? You're going to end up with 40% of Indians out there with nothing. But they ain't going to got nothing. It's not our man, Sarata, Louis. I said that is not democracy. You can't keep nobody out because you win by 1 or 2 seats and you making all the decisions, can do anything you want. Because look at these things you're saying the PVP doing them and they're not doing them, or what's for PVP they're doing it. But most of them are not illegal. It's not illegal, it's undemocratic, because democracy, man, you must have some values. But they would say, oh, they do the same thing. They'll just tell you that. Who knock off 7,000 Indians? Who this and that? Who take 50% increase when they come to the thing? Who said they're going to have shared government and didn't have any? So they just come and tell you the same thing. So when you hear I speak, like this is a PPP in power, there, I speak to them. But I used to do the same thing to the PNC. They never listen. I told them they're going to be weeping and gnashing of teeth, but they just think everybody's going to sit down and let them do what they want to do all the time. So your question, it's the people, it's the way you call the opinion makers and the PNC still believe that they got the ordinary people with shared governance on both sides. PVP asked me to talk at Freedom House and she'd go, I went, and the ordinary people was quite all right with it. The order them, we gotta go. It's the elite that they get locked up in their own self-interest and all of that. And same time, same place.
Jeffrey, we're coming up to another election. It can be called anytime, but at a maximum 2 years more we get. You think we can work out some kind of political solution before the next election?
The EU say got sufficient time. This thing won't have to be worked out in totality. I think you got enough time to even work it out in totality if people want it to work out. If the PNC makes its position quite clear and they want to work with things. Because if Granger come and tell anybody now that he wants shit, governor gonna laugh. Because even you and Ogonzai end up in a whole lot of trouble, got to do a lot of meandering. You asking me a hard question, one day I could talk back and ask you. Got to do a whole lot of meanderings all over the place. You had to do all of that for what they did. And therefore, yes, I think you have the time, David. And I think, but these things need professionals, not the Jeffries of this world. I think I got a basic understanding, but believe you me, this kind of thing need real people who understand how voters behave. You might want to have what you call not the same force past the polls, but transferable vote systems that give people choices between the two parties. All these things, you need real thing, and you can work it out. It can be worked out. What you need is the political will. And even in the worst case, it is always hard for the people on the ground to do it. They always, Clinton had to come on board to make it possible in Northern Ireland. If Clinton didn't come on board, one of them might still be shooting each other.
Yeah.
So,
Dr. Henry Jeffrey, as usual, thank you very much for coming on and shedding some light. And we got you to go behind the scenes tonight and tell us about that initiative to get the two sides working together. Who scuttled the thing?
This story finished, you know.
Who scuttled the thing, Janet or Jack Dio?
Janet. No, I'm not. If I leave it like that, people might want to.
All right, explain.
Yeah. Janet Scotland. She's Scotland.
She's Scotland.
Jack Dio know it. Luncheon know it. I know.
Yeah, you're not going to elaborate. You're going to let me just.
No.
All right, next time you come.
I'm never going to elaborate. Well, no, I've never seen him. Barnaby used to say, never seen him.
Never say. Well, you all get the story here tonight. At least he's not going to exaggerate. We got some things out of Jeffrey tonight. And you know, it's important sometimes to hear this because, you know, those of us who are on the outside, we are hearing what they're telling us. But there's always what they say, what they call in academia, the subtext of the story. You get behind. Henry, good night.
Good night, my man. Have fun.
See you in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And thank you all very much for staying with us. Yes, it's always wanted to know who's got to that thing. Initiatives have been taken all the time for us to put an end to this craziness. But it takes courage. Today's International Nelson Mandela Day. Mandela came out of prison. He could have been tough. He had 90% of the country behind him, Black people in South Africa. And he said no. He set aside a quarter of the government for the apartheid party, the National Party. He made Mr. de Klerk a vice president. When the Inkatha party fighting up and so on, I think the leader was Buthelezi. He made him the Minister of Home Affairs. It was an act of genius. But it took a lot of courage. There are people in South Africa today who still believe that Mandela was wrong. Dr. Jagan talked about the Mandela formula when he got into office, that he was going to do that. He never did it. But Mandela did it. Mandela did it. And so at some point, we have to work this thing out. My position at this time is that we can remove the PPP force. I think they are the bigger obstacle to a political solution in Guyana. We got to remove them first. But when we remove them, whoever take over got to have the vision and the courage to do a Mandela. To say, we now get you out and we're going to negotiate now. Because when you hold power in your hand, you don't want to negotiate. You see, the logic is taking the PPP to a place. They want power on their own. And if you want power on your own, it means you got to suppress people. You got to oppress people. And you end up doing the craziness that the PPP is doing. That's why we got to stop them. Because they believe that they believe that they can capture Black people. Ralph Ramkaran tell them you're all crazy. But he didn't say that. He's saying, no. I know that. Those of us who've been in this thing now know that. And it don't take David Hines or anybody to tell Black people don't go vote for the PPP. I don't take. Black people understand. You're always going to get a few who going to look after their personal interests. So trying to get Black people and control them is not the answer. I see people on this thing tonight telling me, saying Dr. Hines is you keeping the racism on Black people. So if you get rid of me, this is the logic, get rid of Hines, either by taking away freedom of speech or killing me, you're going to control Black people. That's their logic. I know better than that. If Black people support me, people like me, it's not because we preaching racism to them. It's because they feel confident that we are not going to sell out their interests and agree for them to be second-class citizens. It's not because we preaching racism. What will I benefit from preaching racism? Because if I preach racism on this side, it will ignite racism on the other side. I have absolutely no interest in that. I'm about racial equality and racial equitability. And I don't have to tell Black people, don't go and sell your soul. Black people write the book on how not to sell your soul. So the PPP fooling themselves. They're fooling themselves. A political solution so that all of us can live in Guyana as free people, as equal people. Ultimately, that's where we have to go. But we have to walk some steps before we get there. And I'm saying the first step is that we got to get the PPP out of the way. They're the big obstacle. There are some in the PNC who believe they can get into power and do what the PPP doing. They're fooling themselves. But I think there are more people in the PNC who believe in us sharing this country than those in the PPP leadership. I think the majority of the PPP leadership believe that they can run this country on their own and they can control Black people. There are more of them in the PPP than in the PNC. They got some of them in the PNC believe that Indian people stupid and that some of them you can buy them over and they can win and go in. But I don't think they are a critical mass in the leadership of the PNC. On the PPP side, I think there's a critical mass. I think they've been encouraged by what has happened in the last 3 years. And the fact that the PNC is not as militant as it should be, they think that Black people can be bought. And when they look around, they find people like myself outside of the PNC who say, if you think the PNC is weak and you can walk over Black people, you got past me. You got past some of us who are outside of the PNC. That's the problem with Rickford Burke and Mark Benchop and myself and so on, is that they feel that they get the PNC cornered into the conventional story. But they now got to contend with those of us. Rafi Dev and them to say that people like me pulling Aubrey Norton to the left, standing up and saying to them, you all got past me first. If you all think you all past the PNC, you all still got to deal with people like us. So they don't know what to do with people like us. On the one hand, they say, oh, people like David Hines ain't get no support. We're worried that nobody listen to them. On the other hand, they want to get us out of the way. Because they understand the dynamics of the politics. They understand the dynamics of the politics. I'm clear in my mind. They got to go. They got to go. And I am not just for a change in government. I'm also for a change in governance. Because when you change a government, you don't change regime. The regime remains. When you change the governance, you change the regime. So the struggle continues, and we're not going anywhere. We're going to be here fighting the fight. Tomorrow night, I got the ITPADG people coming back to talk about the strategic plan that we discussed to some degree last week. They're going to be back tomorrow night. And we're going to be opening up the plan. Hello to all of you, wonderful people. I met some people from Dartmouth at Buxton today. I came from a funeral in Buxton straight to the program. And I met some Dartmouthians, that's what they call themselves. Dartmoutherians, and I'm shouting out to them, Dartmoutherians, hello Dartmouth, one of the revolutionary villages there on the Essequibo coast. And I know I got some regulars here who are round about Dartmouth. I know one of the ladies, she don't miss a program. I think she's from, is it Greenwich Village, I think, up the road from Dartmouth, and I may get the name wrong, but she is a regular on the program here. Strong PNC lady, but open. And I met her there when we were doing some work in Dartmouth. I think it was 2019. And we went there and we had some community meetings. I remember taking Dr. Rupert Rupnarine there to talk about education and so on. I haven't been back to Dartmouth in recent times. But the Dartmoutherians, I met them in Buxton today, and they say to give them a special shout out. Good evening to all of you. Tomorrow night, we come back to continue the work. We got to work. Very important.